Hey guys, Dan here for Dan Reviews It. Dan Does Disney. Tim is my guest, as he has been lately. Say hello, Tim.
Hi guys.
Through the power of Zoom, we are able to bring you this very sort of, I don't know, obscure Disney movie, I guess, called Make Mine Music. It's not even on Disney Plus, so Tim had to run out to my house to get it, and he has it right there.
Right here we have Make My Music on DVD.
Yeah, and that is the first, by the way, and only release of that movie on DVD, which we're going to get to. But so this was the first one after World War II. This was the era of sort of all of these Disney, shorts made into a movie kind of thing. We had Saludos Amigos already. We had Three Caballeros. There's another couple coming up. And the reason for that mainly is because a lot of Disney animators went away to the war, and the ones that stayed with the program were sort of corralled into doing more propaganda films and shorts for the government. So Walt was like, well, we got to keep the machine going here. So what can we do? So they didn't really have the ability to do all these big, Dumbo and Bambi type features. So they were like, well, let's just do a bunch of shorts kind of stacked together. And this one, unlike really any of the other ones we've talked about yet, is really just a bunch of shorts put together. There's no real segues between them like Fantasia or Three Caballeros. It's just, there's no storyline. They just all have to do with music, basically. And so this is one of the few Disney full-length features that never got a re-release. They broke it up, and like some shorts would be re-released with other movies or whatever, or some shorts would be put onto like the Sunday Night Disney show on television. But this was the one and only full-length feature of this movie. They did make some money on it though, because like we talked about last time, the foreign markets were reopened again after the war. So the movie was made for about 1.3 million. It made almost 3.3 million, and about 2 million of that came from the US and Canada. So definitely, even though it's not even a real feature, it's just the shorts put together, this still made a lot of money for the Disney studios. So we're going to basically go one by one, like we've done with some of the other ones, and talk about the shorts individually as we go through. But the first one we're going to talk about is actually a weird one, because the release that Tim and I watched, the 2000 DVD version, doesn't have the first segment.
Yeah.
Not included. And it's called the Martins and the Coys, and like we usually do, Tim will actually go over all of the what all these are about, and then we'll kind of just talk about them. But this one is cut out completely. And then also, I don't know if you saw this, Tim, but there's a little bit of mild female nudity apparently.
I did notice that.
Yeah, in the all cats, what's it called? All the Cats Join In segment. Yeah. As pinups and stuff were kind of all the rage after the war, and a lot of cartoons, especially like the sort of the Warner Brothers ones, some Tom and Jerry and Droopy, a lot of the Tex Avery cartoons had a lot of those like pinup gals as part of the motif, and they decided to edit that out for really all of the subsequent features. But the Martins and the Coys, which we're going to talk about, was reinstated when the film made release in Europe in about 2013 on DVD. But like we said, this one isn't on Disney Plus at all. I don't know why. Unlike Song of the South, which is for more racist overtones, I don't know why this one's not available.
I didn't even look to see if like the more famous ones, like Casey at the Bat is a more famous short. I didn't even look to see if like that is available in short form, because they do have shorts. I didn't even think about that until just now.
Yeah, I didn't look either. They don't have a ton of shorts though. I mean, they have Steamboat Mickey, and they have like some of the real famous ones, but yeah, I've noticed they don't have a lot of shorts that maybe you would know.
Yeah, I mean,
because not.
Casey at the Bat, I feel, is one of the more famous shorts from here, and maybe the Peter and the Wolf as well.
Yeah, that's what I would think too. Those would probably, if any of them, those might have made the cut. But I will point this out. This is a little interesting before we get into the shorts themselves. The whole Martins and the Coys thing was shown in full when they showed this as a movie on ABC. I think it was on the Disney Channel, actually, not ABC. But so here's my logic on this. I think because the DVD was released in 2000, which was right after Columbine, I think they were really being sensitive to like gun violence and gunplay, and that's why they excised this from the DVD. That's just my personal thought on it, but
could be possible.
It's possible. So let's talk about them. Let's go one by one on the shorts. We'll talk about one.
So the movie opens up, and it's basically like going to see a musical. Like the curtains open up, and a program opens, and then before each title, you're kind of given like almost the credits of the movie of the short, and each one has a description. Some of them are like a tone poem, and it tells you who's doing it and the lyrics and stuff like that, or who's singing it, stuff like that. And then it gives you the title of the short. So it's kind of like almost going to a musical or a play and looking at the playbill between each segment or act and be like, oh, okay, this is what's going on. This is who's playing who and whatnot. So the first one is a rustic ballad, and it's the Martins and the McCoys, sung by the Kingsmen, which I never heard of before.
They're pretty old. Yeah.
They're real. And it's a play off the Hatfields and the McCoys, which is a famous feud between the two families. And basically, all of them kill each other except for one Martin, one Coy. It's Grace and Henry, and lo and behold, they fall in love with each other. They get married, but the twist is the fighting continues as a marriage couple at the end.
Yeah,
and that's basically
it's very Romeo and Juliet-esque also.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't kill themselves at the end, but yeah.
Yeah, any type of Romeo and Juliet, like West Side Story, two people from rival families falling in love. I know, I thought it was cute. I thought the Kingsmen did a good job with their rustic ballad. It's one of the better songs, I think.
I did like the song, yeah.
I mean,
and we were to watch it on YouTube.
Yes.
So I'll put the link in the description to where we found it. Did you have to watch it with the Spanish subtitles?
Yes.
That's the most prevalent one, I guess. That's how I watched it too.
English with Spanish subtitles.
Yeah. Which is fine.
Yeah. But I mean, I thought the animation wasn't anything that we haven't seen before. I mean, at the time, maybe the story was somewhat original, but it's something that we as the viewer have seen time and time again at this point. But I thought it was good. I thought it would.
I agree that it is one of the better songs, but animation-wise, there's like maybe 3 of the segments that are very, very just basic, Disney short or Warner Brothers short animation style.
Yes.
It's pretty cut and dry. There's nothing innovative about it. But I did like the song.
Yeah, this is one of them. The story was okay. At least there was a story there, unlike some of the other ones that we talk about later. But I think this would be a much better way to start the movie opposed to the next segment we're going to get to. But I thought it was a good start of the movie if it was still the start.
It's funny you say that because I would agree with that. And thinking about it, I didn't really think of this at the time, but since this was sort of taken out, I don't know why they didn't just sort of maybe rearrange the shorts a little bit to have a better opening number or better sequence. I mean, I guess they wanted to keep the integrity of everything better, but Yeah, if they're going to take out the first part, they should have had a better opening number. I agree.
And to speak about the gun violence that's in there, I didn't think it was anything worse than any other short at the time, or but like you said, with Columbine happening right before this release, it does make sense.
Yeah, that was the only thing I could really think of. Because, right, like, I mean, this is the studio where they, Bambi's mom gets murdered, and I mean, The Lion King had come out by then, and that was pretty graphic. And I mean, there wasn't guns in that, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's a lot, Yosemite Sam is a classic Warner Brothers character. He's always toting guns. I know Disney is always trying to be a little more family friendly than some of those other studios, but still, yeah, it seems to me that might be the only reason that they would have taken it out. Because yeah, it doesn't seem any different than the shorts at the time.
Yeah, but I think now you can't really have a cartoon character that they're making now hold a realistic looking gun.
Yeah, not anymore.
If it's like a Space Ray or something like that, that's fine. But a realistic looking gun they can't really hold because Panchito Pistoles, like last week, he had pistols in his holster. In the cartoon, The Three Caballeros, he doesn't even have holsters. And then I've been watching DuckTales, the reboot, and I did watch that episode, and he has holsters, but he has smartphones in them instead.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Look what we started you on, Tim, on the Disney Plus cartoons. All right, so what's up next?
The next is the tone poem, Blue Bayou. It is sung by the Ken Darby Singers, and it is two Ingrats flying through the Everglades. And that's it. There is no story here, just showcasing great animation with the water and the reflections and ripples running through the water, kind of going in sync with the music. And that's
really quick one too. I mean, it's only
very quick.
Yeah, the times vary greatly on these.
Yes, I wasn't a big fan of the song either. I couldn't really understand the lyrics a lot of the times. It was just kind of like a melancholy song to begin with. So I didn't think it was one of the better songs. The animation was good. I thought the animation was really good. Did you read up on this one?
Well, I know it was the animation portion. I know was originally meant for Fantasia.
Yes.
And which makes sense because the piece, even though you didn't really care for it, is a pretty classic, classical number called Clair de Lune. So
they changed the song.
Yeah, I was going to say I don't know if the song specifically was meant for Fantasia, but the animation sequence was. I think it would have been okay in Fantasia. I think the stuff in Fantasia was a little bit more experimental or maybe a little more interesting than this. But animation style, this is one of the probably better ones for this movie.
Yes. I'm surprised that how short it was for it to be with Fantasia, though, because Fantasia, I felt like every segment ran on 2 minutes too long.
I agree.
This was about 2 minutes of a short to begin with.
Well, and maybe that's why they cut it. Maybe they just thought, well, we have these other things that are more developed or whatever, and Walt just wanted to keep it around. But yeah, if you watched my Fantasia review with Joe, I felt the same thing. Like all but maybe one of the segments I thought was too long.
Yeah.
And here you definitely don't have that problem because I think the longest one is maybe 12 minutes. The whale one at the end, I think, is the longest.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So that's that. And moving on to the next piece, which is a jazz interlude, and that is All the Cats Join In, and it's sung by Benny Goodman. And this one reminds me a lot of the watercolors still a little bit, not with the style, but with the concept of the basically as a sketchbook and a pencil comes to life and it's kind of live drawing the action as it happens. In watercolors in Brazil, paintbrush doing it.
Right.
But different stylish completely. And the pencil first draws a cat and then it erases it because it's not about cats. It's about cool people, those type of cats.
Right.
And
Hep
we,
cat.
yeah, hip cats. So we draw a boy, he turns on a jukebox, he calls his girl, and then she gets ready. And this is the segment that we do have some female nudity that they kind of edited out on art. And then she gets ready, he picks her up, he picks up all his friends, they go to the malt shop, and then they kind of just dance a night away until the jukebox kind of explodes into colorful music notes at the end. I really like, even though it's basically the same concept of the paintbrush doing the drawing, I really like this concept of the pencil doing the drawing, kind of like drawing in like telephone wires.
Me too.
The characters sometimes are half drawn, or they're not in the scene at all, and they draw them in. Sometimes they draw clothes, and the naked girl jumps into the clothes. And the dance scenes, that I thought that was a cool transition. I always look at transitions for some reason, but they kind of looked like pages flipping in the sketchbook, which was the basic concept. And also the song was probably my favorite song of all 10 songs that we have. And I mean, with the naked girl, I was a little thrown off by what they actually did have in the cartoon for it being 1940s. So I did some research and they edited it slightly. I found the side-by-side comparisons, and basically a couple shots of side boob that you could see, but they kind of like just kind of erased those. So like we just have her arm instead of like the side boob that they had.
So it's only slightly censored.
Slightly censored, so that we didn't miss any actual sequence. It was just some of the naked girl scenes were a little bit more naked. Okay,
so a little bit more tame. Yeah, I would agree. This is probably my favorite of the music intensive shorts. Because I don't think Casey at the Bat is that music intensive. That's probably my favorite overall, maybe. But this, first of all, the style I like. I agree with you. It's very similar to the watercolors, but the whole pencil thing was really cool. And for me, I think one of my favorite things about it was that, as a huge fan of Archie comics and the early days of Archie, when this took place about the same time that Archie comics started. So a lot of the style and a lot of what's being depicted is very similar to early Archie comics and cartoons. And so for me personally, I just really liked that. It brought me kind of home. I will correct you though. Benny Goodman is actually a conductor. So it's the Benny Goodman Orchestra is doing the music, but the Pied Pipers apparently are doing the singing here.
My bad.
But yeah, but I agree that the song is great. I love, Benny. My dad was a big Benny Goodman fan, so I am well versed in that sort of style and the whole swing thing. And yeah, I thought this song was probably the best of the whole lot. Peter and the Wolf is pretty classic, but for me personally, yeah, I think this was probably the best song. And yeah, I thought the animation was really, really cool. So I'm with you. This is one of my favorites.
Yeah, I definitely did get an Archie vibe as well, and I didn't even read the comics.
Yeah, yeah, it's just that whole style, especially like when they're going to the malt shop and the way they're swinging, and yeah, it was very, very classic.
The type of car he was driving was very Archie as well.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, the old Edsel type car. Yeah.
Okay. So moving on, we have A Ballad in Blue. And the segment is called Without You and it is sung by Andy Russell. And this is another short segment. It starts with a Dear John letter on a table, and then we pan over to a rainy window, and it turns into a landscape. It turns into stars, into another landscape, into a sunset, and then we have like a single star, and it runs down the window like rain. And that's basically it. And I got the feeling that basically everything that we're seeing were kind of like the memories that the singer thinks of now that he's kind of heartbroken with this Dear John letter. It had interesting transitions and animation, but I thought the song was a bit of a downer.
It was forgettable for sure, and it was a downer, yes.
Because you have all this kind of like you're bopping along with all the cats join in, and then you're like, okay, let's get Ballad in Blue here, take it down a couple notches.
Yeah, I think this to me stuck out as sort of like, I just felt like some of the Disney animators had like ideas, and they were like, hey, well, like I don't know what to do with this, but here's this animation I've been working on, or whatever. And it just, it didn't quite fit with a lot of the tone of some of the other ones. I'm glad it was short.
Yeah.
It was interesting enough, I guess. But yeah, the song was the worst probably in the bunch and very forgettable.
Yeah. Next thing we have is a musical recitation. And that is Casey at the Bat. And it is spoken word by Jerry Colana, I believe.
Sure.
And it's basically the reciting of the poem of the same name about an arrogant ball player whose cockiness basically is his undoing in the end. And of course, Disney puts its own touch on it. They add some music and some sight gags to go along with the poem, and I think they might a little bit of the poem, but that is basically it. This is one of the more famous shorts because I remember seeing this short in probably a couple different grades. Not sure why, but Casey at the Bat seemed to be one of those things.
I think because they make you read the poem.
Maybe.
Right? Like I remember reading the poem, and then they showed this as a here's what happened in Casey at the Bat when they animated it or whatever. But yeah, I remember reading the poem probably like third grade or something.
But this is basically, I feel like, is a classic cartoon short that came out of this movie. And it is probably one of my favorites as well, along with all the cat short.
Yeah, this might be my favorite short overall. But yeah, like I thought this sort of stuck out like a sore thumb just because it's not very music intensive. There's a lot of spots where there's no music at all, and they're just doing the narration or they're just doing sight gags. But the other thing that struck me is I didn't check on the year for this. I should have, but it probably came out right around the time of the Bugs Bunny cartoon where he plays all the bases, and I don't know which one came first, but that's like a classic Bugs Bunny cartoon too. So I don't know if Disney was like, oh, I'm going to make my own version of the baseball gag. But this is a very classic cartoon. They actually made a sequel to this, which I thought would have been cool if they put on the DVD, but they didn't. But in the 50s, they had like Casey Strikes Again or something, I think it was called.
Oh.
But yeah, I mean, the animation here is very, very Warner Brothers, like very of the time for short cartoons. It is nothing like anything Walt was really doing with his full features. And I think that may be kind of the other reason it sticks out to me.
They had a interesting start to it. Kind of started with kind of almost like scenes that kind of looked like classic paintings.
Yeah, that was neat. That's true. That is, I guess, a little bit of a variation on the usual shorts. But then once they get into it, the animation is very standard. Yes. But the story's great, so it is one of my favorites for sure.
And then we go to probably my least favorite, which is Ballad Ballet, Two Silhouettes.
Yeah.
The song is by Dinah Shore.
Yep.
And it is basically, it starts with a heart that turns into two cupids, and they open the gate to our dancers, and it's two silhouettes, basically people dancing, and they rotoscope over them, and they dance a ballet, and while the silhouettes are dancing, they kind of interact with the background and the scenes a little bit. They dance in space at one point. and it ends with the Cupids turning back into a heart. I didn't think the dancing was anything special, and I thought the song was okay. I thought the most interesting thing was the backgrounds were drawn. They were interesting backgrounds.
Yeah, I mean, for this one, even, I mean, the rotoscoping looks cool, but it's something that even at this point had been done a lot. Like, there's a lot of early, like, Popeye, Betty Boop cartoons that use that sort of technique, especially like in a fight scene or a dance sequence. So I think even at the time, even though it looks cool, wasn't super cutting edge. So yeah, I agree. This is easily one of the weakest ones of the bunch.
Yeah. Maybe if the dance was a little bit like more interesting, I thought the dancing was even that interesting.
Yeah, and the song is also, I mean, I like Dinah Shore's voice and everything, but the song isn't very memorable.
No, it's
compared to
it's
a lot of the other ones.
I feel like they want to just like, they're like, hey, here's something interesting, kind of edge on your seat, and then let's bring you back down to like being like, okay, let's have another snooze fest of a song.
Yeah, I sort of like all of these little, like, I don't know, I guess I would call them interludes maybe, between like the good bits were just, I just have this image of, you know, like I said, like Walt's just going through the animation studio being like, hey, what do you got over there? And they're like, oh, I don't know, this thing I've been working on. It's like they didn't really have much of a story to go with it. Like Peter and the Wolf or Casey and the Bat, you know, I mean, even though those are already classic stories that were out, but they were just like, oh, let's just kind of have these people dancing and it'll be fun to look at. But it just ended up being kind of like whatever.
Yeah. So after that, we move on to another good classic Disney cartoon, and that's the fairy tale with music, and that is Peter and the Wolf. And that is the animated dramatization of Sergei, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Prokofiev?
Yeah, Prokofiev maybe? Prokofiev?
I don't know. He's a famous Russian composer, and he has Peter and the Wolf is one of his famous musical compositions. And there is narration by Sterling Holloway. And basically,
remember him, Tim?
What?
Do you remember Sterling Holloway?
No.
He appeared in, well, first of all, he's the original voice of Winnie the Pooh, but I feel like he was in one of the Spanish movies we watched. Let me look here. Was he in any of the maybe he wasn't.
I mean, his voice sounded familiar, but
yeah, he was the original Winnie the Pooh up till really the 80s. All right, maybe he wasn't in Three Caballeros. I thought he was in one of the Spanish ones we saw.
But basically, Peter sets out with his friends, Sasha the bird, Sonia the duck, and Ivan the cat, to hunt the wolf. And each character is represented with a specific musical accompaniment. Basically, string quartet is Peter, flute is the bird, oboe is the duck, clarinet is the cat, the bassoon is his uncle, kettle drums are the other hunters, and then the wolf is /cymbal. I mean, I've seen this one multiple times as well in music class and stuff.
Yeah, didn't you watch this in music class?
Yeah, probably.
Because I know I did.
At least 3 times I feel like I've watched it in 3 different grades.
I can't remember if I watched it every time or if I think at least one of my teachers had the record of it and we listened to it. But it was basically just this audio because it was definitely like, because I remember thinking, hey, that's Winnie the Pooh like telling the story.
Yeah, so, now that you say that, I do remember listening it to as well. But I do remember watching it. There's a stylized introduction to each character and their instruments, and I thought that was very clever and neat how they did that. The hunters are really funny, and the characters are very likable, even though they don't actually speak. It's all narration by Hollowell. And I think this is another classic, great sequence of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to go wrong with this. It is a classic. They teach it in school 50, 60 years later for a reason. The animation's great. I mean, it's, again, nothing necessarily groundbreaking here, but it's all eye-catching. It's all, there's a lot of action going on. And just, the way that they animate the instruments is really cool.
Yeah, I thought the beginning section of it was maybe a little bit groundbreaking of how they stylized
where they introduced everything.
They introduced everything. I thought that was done. I don't think I remember seeing that done in anything other way. Maybe a little bit of Fantasia, but I thought this was done better than Fantasia because I thought Fantasia was kind of all over the place.
Right.
But then once we get into the actual cartoon, yes, that is very classic Disney thing.
Yeah. Which, I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that, I mean, yeah. I know I've been saying a couple of times, oh, it's so, classic and not groundbreaking. And there's literally nothing wrong with that, especially with a short compilation like this. But some of the things we've been looking at previously are definitely more innovative than some of these things. But a great story is still a great story, and the way it's handled. So I did find out, okay, so Sterling Holloway, he was in Three Cowboy Girls very briefly as a professor, but he's Mr. Stork in Dumbo. He's the voice of the stork at the beginning that brings Dumbo. So
yeah, so he narrated the Pablo Penguin sequence.
That's what it was. Okay, that's what it was. Yeah. So he's a Disney classic voice actor, I guess.
So next we're moving on to this one was just called Goodman Quartet, and it's back with Benny Goodman and his quartet, and it is After You're Gone, or After You've Gone. And this one is kind of the most trippy one of the segments.
Yeah.
And basically it's colorful instruments that can move like humans, and they run around and play through a musical adventure. I feel like the clarinet is the main character, but there's also a piano, some drums, a bass, and there's some interesting things that happen. Like the clarinet is kind of juggling at one point. It boxes the bass, and then one point it turns into fire. I think that's supposed to like symbolize that it's hot, like red hot, like. But the song is really good. Like the jazz song that they're doing is very catchy and upbeat. So, I mean, I didn't hate it, but I thought it was just decent, because I feel like most of this trippy stuff we've seen, a lot of at this point with Fantasia, and especially with the last one, the Three Caballeros, had a lot of trippy stuff in it. But out of all that we watched last week, I think I like this one more than anything else was in Three Caballeros.
Yeah, I mean, this definitely wasn't as like headache inducing. Three Caballeros was just like, I mean, it was just like on crack.
Yeah.
I think this is more akin to like the Pink Elephant sequence, for example, in Dumbo. It was interesting, and trippy and a little off the wall, but it wasn't too much. It was definitely, it's understated isn't really the proper word for something like this, but it was not as in your face as the Three Caballeros stuff, I felt.
We have a love story, and it is sung by the Andrew sisters, and it is Johnny Fedora and Blu-ray.
Have you heard of the Andrew sisters, Tim?
No.
No? All right. They are pretty classic. They had a lot of hits in like the 50s and 40s and 50s. But, okay.
You know me and music.
No, I know. I don't know. My grandparents were big into the Andrew sisters and Benny Goodman and all that stuff. So, okay.
The base of the story of this is you have two hats. They fall in love at a department store, and they dream of living in a giant hatbox mansion and starting a family together. But Alice, the blue bonnet, is sold, and John, the fedora, is a devoted lover, and he never stops looking. Just when he thinks it's the end, he is reunited and live happily ever after. I thought this was very cute. The hats are able to convey a lot of emotion. I thought they did a very good job, especially with the fedora Johnny. Alice Bluebonnet doesn't as much of motion. Her ribbons do a lot more of the motion than her actual hat. But Johnny is the main character of this short, and they did a really good job with it. And for never hearing of the Andrews Sisters, I thought the song was good.
There you go. Yeah, I feel like they maybe had like a lot of Christmas hits back in the day or something, but yeah, this to me is like a super like precursor to Pixar. Like this
Yeah.
is such. Didn't you think that? Like
It
this
has,
is such a Pixar-esque type of scenario. Even the animation, obviously the Pixar animation is a lot more, involved with the computers, but just the way it was handled and the like you mentioned, it conveys a lot with like just the tassels or whatever. It was very Pixar to me.
yes. And the story was really good. And I mean, the song isn't like upbeat or catchy or like upbeat, like kind of like the jazz numbers, but I mean, it's kind of slow, but I thought it was very good as well. Even though it is a little slow of a song, I thought it was very catchy of a song.
Yeah, for all of the like, I guess down tempo numbers in this movie, this is the best of them for sure.
Yeah.
It's not like annoying like the other ones. But yeah, I agree. I thought the animation was really cute. The story was cute. This is definitely one of my favorites, and I don't think I've ever seen this before. Like, Peter and the Wolf, Casey and the Bat, but I've never seen this before, I don't think.
And that's probably why I like this one a little bit better than Casey at the Bat and Peter and the Wolf. Watching it this time, but those are classics. But I gave this one a little bit of a higher grade. It was the first time watching it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, it's kind of like Baby Weaves almost. Like,
Yeah.
Like that was something I'd never even heard of until Reluctant Dragon came around, and then I watched it. I was like, wow, this is really cool, something different. This definitely stands out from everything else in the whole picture, I think. And then we get to the finale.
The description before the title was patholotique or something like that. I have no idea what that was. I tried Google searching what that was. It didn't give me anything.
Maybe they made it up.
I don't know. But this one was the whale who wanted to sing at the Met. And Nelson Eddy does all the voices.
That was crazy when I read that.
Yeah, he does all the singing, and he does all the voices of all the characters that are introduced throughout the movie. And this is a bittersweet story of Willie the Whale, who has incredible music talent and dreams of singing at the Met. A rumor of the singing whale spreads through the city. However, the theater producer, Teti Tati, believes that the whale swallowed an opera singer and wants to save him. He doesn't think that there's an actual singing whale.
Not true, Tim. He could sing.
He could sing. Whitey the Seagull finds a newspaper and brings it to Willie the Whale. And thinking that it's his chance to get discovered as an opera singer, he goes to audition for Teti Tati. Here we see Willie sing and kind of like what he dreams will happen, giving the viewer the pleasure of seeing a giant whale dressed as different opera singers. My favorite was the crying, singing clown. But at one point he's also, I think, Romeo and Juliet, and then also he's the devil, apparently, a different opera. And then it's just, we find out that not only can Willie just sing one voice, he has three separate voices that can sing at the same time because he has three different,
Uvulas.
Yep. Yeah. So now Teddy Toddy thinks that the whale swallowed three opera singers. And he harpoons and kills Willie. The narrator then cheers up Whitey the Seagull, who's crying at the point, and tells us that he is now singing sold-out shows in heaven. So that's kind of like the sweet part of the bittersweet. I also thought this was cute. The animation, nothing really stood out animation-wise, except for at the end when they had Heaven's Gate there with the sold-out sign. I thought that was really done animation.
Yeah, that was cool.
And then I thought the dream sequence of him performing at the Met, I thought was probably the best sequence of the movie.
Okay. Wow. Of the whole movie or just the short?
The short.
Okay. Got it. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was an odd way to end the movie, but at the same time, if the objective of Make Mine Music is to be like some sort of Broadway show or something, there is a lot of shows that end in tragedy, so it kind of makes sense to, you know, have that be the end and then you pull the final curtain down. It's very dark though. I like that he talks about how he's going to be up in heaven singing for everybody, but Disney does not usually end dark. There's usually darkness in there, and then by the end all the characters are singing and dancing and whatever. So that was definitely something different. I was shocked that's what happened. So it's a little bold.
For the musical fantasy that we're on, I feel like the reason they ended with this one is because not only is it musical, but the theme of the short is also dealing with music and
right.
So, and kind of like a show. So that's probably why they ended with it. But I mean, they could have ended with something else. Like they could have ended with Johnny Fedora and Alice Bluebonnet instead, and would have had a little bit more of a happy ending. But I don't think that was kind of like, I don't know. Usually they also like to end with like the longer segments.
It is true, and it had to be the longest one. I didn't time them all out, but
it definitely was the longest one. But I didn't feel like it was too long. I didn't have that feeling towards it.
No, I still think this was shorter feeling than anything in Fantasia. I don't know if it is shorter or not, but it definitely didn't feel stretched out or anything. And I'll give you this one. I didn't know who Nelson Eddy was. I know a lot of these old people from the 30s and 40s, but I didn't know Nelson Eddy. But what a friggin' talent that guy was. I mean, to do all the different voices and all the singing voices layered on top of each other and do the narration. It was very like Mel Blanc, it seemed like.
Yeah, and like the singing voices, it was like 3 different octave levels as well. It was like tenor, bass,
cool.
Something else, and so his ability to have that different range was also very good for him.
Yeah, I thought that was neat. It was definitely a bold way, I think, to end the movie, but a pretty cool one, I guess.
Yeah.
I feel like the last really half of the movie, there aren't any stinkers, and the one that kind of is only like 2 minutes long. So,
yeah,
you know, for that. But all right, so there isn't much to talk about in terms of the DVD itself.
This
but
DVD,
that DVD right there.
Yeah, I watched the bonus features because the bonus features were 3 shorts.
Yeah, I mean that's all they had, and they were all music related shorts. It was the band concert, which is the first Mickey Mouse short they ever did in color. It was very highly received by everyone, like animation critics, and in the 90s they did a poll about the greatest cartoons of all time. That was number 3, and it's the only one in the top 5 that wasn't Warner Brothers. So I thought that was interesting.
I thought that was the best of the 3 shorts that they included. I thought
by far. It's Donald's actually only 4th appearance too. It was before Donald Duck even got his own cartoons, so that's very early Donald.
You must have liked Donald in this one. He didn't talk that much.
He barely talked. He was the only one that did talk, but yeah, he barely talked. He was fine. He was doing his thing. And then the other one, Farmyard Symphony, that was okay. That was sort of a precursor to Fantasia in the fact that it had a lot of different musical stylings in one short. And that was from 1938. And then another 35 one, Musicland, I thought was kind of whatever.
Yeah.
It didn't appeal to me too much. But But so in terms of the afterlife of this movie, like I already said that, some of the shorts appeared on, obviously, we saw them on different compilations in school. But this movie also oddly never got a soundtrack, which I thought was weird, since I don't know if these songs were available as songs on their own at the time or on, the Andrews Sisters album or whatever, but there was no soundtrack ever released for this. And the home releases were very, very slim. So it came out in the 80s originally. Japan had it on Laserdisc in 85. Scandinavia had it on VHS in 83. And that was it. We didn't get it till 2000. The UK got it in 2013 with all the segments intact. And this is one of only 2 Disney movies never released on DVD in Australia. And this is one of the very few Disney movies not available on Blu-ray here in the States. So it's really weird. I don't know why. I mean, some of the shorts have shown up on compilations and stuff. But I don't know why they seem to want to put this one with Song of the South or something and just not have wide releases for it.
I don't know, because
yeah, it's weird.
As a whole, I enjoyed it. Like, there was probably a couple snoozers in there, and even those snoozers had really good animation for the most part. Like, the first one that's like very short and the song kind of downtrodden and kind of is a horrible way to start a DVD if you cut out the first part. But the animation was really good, so I still gave it like a low B. And the one that I had in the C range was that stupid silhouette one that I didn't like.
And it's so short. Like the losers are, the losers here have interesting animation, and they're so short that it doesn't matter that the song isn't good or that there's no story to it. Okay, so what if you had rearranged it, seeing as how the Martins and the Coys or whatever it was gone, what would you have put first? Because I think I might have put Casey at the Bat first.
Maybe Casey at the Bat, or maybe the other classic, Peter and the Wolf. Something that like kind of, but I mean, obviously they don't know they're classics at that. Well, for this DVD, in 2000, this is
right.
This is the edited, but you know that Casey and the Bat and Peter the Wolf are the classics. So I mean, maybe they just don't want to rearrange it because that's how it was originally shown. They just editing the other part, but I think they should have rearranged it.
Yeah, I think it starts out on a real like kind of. Didn't you think like, oh man, what is this going to be when it starts?
I did. And then because I was following along with Wikipedia. And then I was so confused that, like, I'm like, where's this Martins and the Coys?
Okay, so you knew that it wasn't on there. I didn't know until after I was done watching it. And then I sort of looked up, the history of everything, because I like to watch it first, open-minded and not know anything. And so I looked at it, I'm like, oh, there's a whole segment I didn't see at the top of this.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's definitely weird.
But like for my notes, like I thought it would have been a lot harder to follow along. Kind of like I was thinking it was going to be like Three Caballeros, where like I was kind of lost breaking down the segments. This one was super easy to the segments because they break it down for you. So I was just kind of following along, and I was like, wait a second, that's not how it started. I mean, I was like on the third one, and I was kind of like, oh wait, I missed one? How did I miss one?
Right.
And then I went on YouTube and I watched that one. I kind of took notes for it, and then I kind of went back into it. And I was like, that would have been a much better way to start the movie.
Yeah, you want to start on an up note for sure. I will say that, so I looked this up. So the baseball Bugs Bunny cartoon was the same year as this movie. It was in February of 46. So maybe they just had the same ideas at the same time.
Finding Nemo Shark Tale.
What's that?
Finding Nemo Shark Tale.
That's true. Finding Nemo Shark Tale. Yes, you're right. Or Smallfoot.
Armageddon and Deep Impact. Volcano and Dante's Peak.
Yes. And you have to imagine right as World War II ended, baseball probably was huge because people were getting back into the swing of things and whatever. So it makes sense they would both have a baseball themed idea at the same time. So, but all right, so let's grade this on the whole. I think the good outweighs the bad here by far. I think a couple of these shorts are in that A+ and A range. I leave the movie on the whole with an A-.
Yeah, that's probably where I would leave it as well. A-.
Yeah. And that includes the Martins and the Coys bit, obviously.
Yes.
I think without that, it definitely loses something.
Without that, I was going to give it a plus, just because it's just a weird way to start the movie.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, between not having a great segment in there and starting the movie out very oddly, I think it makes sense to drop it a little bit. But yeah, with that involved, I would give it the A+, A-, I should say.
So, what are you grading this great DVD?
I mean, honestly, it's going to be on the lower end because it took out that great segment and the extras just aren't that good. So I think I will leave the DVD with a C+.
A C+?
Yeah. Do you think that's too high? Is that too high for it?
No, it's too low for it because it's the only way to watch it, though, as well. So
I guess that's true. Okay, hold on. You're right. I didn't consider it's the only way to watch it. All right, I guess I'll give it a B then.
Yes.
But the second this thing comes out on Blu-ray with the Martins and the Coys intact in a year or two or whenever Disney decides to do it, then that drops immediately down to that C. But you're right. I guess since it is the only way to watch it, I have to grade it with something.
But where would you find the gold classic collection these days?
You can find it on Amazon, but it's out of print, so you're going to pay $50 or $60 for it, probably, or more. So
worth that.
It's not quite worth that. So I think you have to wait until Disney Plus decides to put it on, or I imagine because there's a lot of movies, like one that's coming up is so dear to my heart, that are Disney Movie Club exclusives. I can see them doing this as like a Blu-ray Disney Movie Club exclusive. So that might be a good way to get it eventually. But who knows?
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, up next is going to be Song of the South. I had to special order that. It's not here yet, so I'm not positive when we'll have that video for you. Hopefully within the next week or two. Although under the quarantine, that'll be another one Tim will have to run out to my house and get. But yeah, that'll do it. Thanks, Tim, for joining. As always, good to have you.
Good to be here.
And yeah, we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye, everybody.